Welcome. I am going to do this in English as announced in the program. I just did a Swedish version. Welcome. I hope you had enjoyed your day so far, all the way from the US, I understood. Met a lot of Dutch people and German and Belgium. And I think this sale, the last sale, as NEVS called it, has attracted a lot of visitors. I thought it was, my estimate was it was 800 meters of queue before the door opened. Frank Smith is my name. I was one of the leading persons when we did the Emily project. Peter Dahl, who's also in this picture, led the actual project. We conducted the engineers to this fantastic result. I was leading the engineering department at that time, so it was mainly my team and also a lot of consultants, I should add, that made this happen. We got this assignment in a quite a funny way. We were in China for a budget meeting, and November 2019, Evergrande, the owner of NEVS, had invited all the European-owned Evergrande companies to come to China and explain what each company would like to do 2020 and how much money would be needed. So I was there with as part of the management team. I was there. We had with us the Pons project, the self-driving bus, which is in the big sales hall. Honey? Danny var the so we were in China. We had with us the Fonds project and explained to the leadership that this is the future. We would like to continue with this project, and we asked for this budget. And already before we had explained how much money we would need, the chairman of Evergrande said, "No, take it away. It's ugly. There might be a future in those kind of products and services, but not now. We need normal cars." And they had started half a year earlier, so in summer 2019, they had started 12 new vehicle projects. And they did not have their own engineering organization at all, so they had hired German and Austrian engineering companies like Magna, ERDAG, FED, or AVL. So 5 engineering companies, Austria and Germany, split it to 12 projects. And me, who saw this happen, said, "Hello, I have 300 engineers here in Sweden. We have done cars since 1947. We can do one." But we didn't get any project. And all of us were, to say it in Swedish, pissed off about that. So I back up a little bit to the meeting in south of China at the headquarters of Evergrande. When we came in, there was already some sort of a engaged discussion ongoing between the Chinese. And I've been to China a lot of times. I cannot speak Chinese, but I've learned some words. And when you hear them say NEVS and protein and see the gestures that they make, my conclusion was, I wonder if they are fighting over what do we need those companies for? We have the Germans and the Austrians. And then the meeting started. As I said, Pons was wiped away off the table. But at the end of the meeting, he said, wait. The chairman said, you, and you. And those 3 U's were NEVS, my chairman, Stefan Till, Protein, the British company that made those motors, and a Dutch company called E-Traction, who makes e-axles for buses and trucks. I want the three of you to work together and show me how you can use and integrate those in-wheel motors in a vehicle if you develop it from scratch. I will send you a sketch, he said, in a few weeks, and build a number of vehicles. And if you can show me that this works, I can make the decision. We will put it in mass production. And then he said, here is $30 million, and you have 6 months time. 6 months. And think about how pissed off I was half a year earlier because we never got to work on one of their projects. So when my CEO, Stefan Tilk, poked me in the side and said, what should I answer? When he said 6 months, I said, we have to take this project. This can be our chance to show what we can do as a team. But for God's sake, ask for 18 months. But it's the bare minimum we could do something like this. So it was negotiated to somewhere in between 10 months. We should build 10 vehicles, was also decided. And this was very important, that if he wanted later on, this should be able to be produced. So in November, we got this task, and that's also the origin of the name Emily. Because when I called after the meeting, I called Peter Dahl, who was not in China back then. He was on his way to Turkey for another meeting. I called, we have got this project. We have to take this. I explained a little bit. We will get a sketch. Okay, I will consider how we could make this happen. So he called the day after and said, I think I know how we should do this. Let's hope it's a SUV on the sketch. But we have to call the project something. And he said, let's call it Leopold. I said, Leopold? Why? It's November 15. He said, it's Leopold's name day. In Swedish, every date has a name or a few names that are celebrated, like a birthday. I said, no. We got the task yesterday, November 14th. So if we use a name day, it should be the 14th at least. And that was a much nicer name, I think, compared to Leopold. No Leopold in the room, right? So he had thought out and hoped for an SUV sketch, but what we got was this sketch. And I had it on the previous one too, a little bigger. The design sketch is typically not really realistic. It's usually extremely big wheels, too low windows, everything is exaggerated. And so normally you have to translate the sketch into something that is practically doable, legal, because there's legal rules to comply to, like enough vision forward. And ergonomically also, you have to be able to get in and out without, be irritated or hurt yourself. But here is a very simple overlay. The blue lines is the Emily as we built it. The shaded colored vehicle is the sketch. So the shape itself is quite the same, but when we put in standard persons, and standard is really standard because these are called 95 percentile male, which means that this size body represents 95% of all the male people in Europe. When we did that, also in the back, you see the heel was outside of the vehicle, and also getting in and out was difficult, and the vision forward was too bad. So we have to make some modifications. And that's basically what we do in a normal project also. And a normal vehicle development project is 4 years. we could, if you already have a platform, you can do it maybe a little faster if you reuse a lot of former vehicle components or systems. But 4 years is a typical project from sketch to sales start. And if you have to do a platform, you can add another 2 years or 6 years. What we typically do is we engage only, and this is a symbolic number, but just to explain the magnitude. In the early stage of a project, we engage 6 people. And then we add, when we have a little better grip on what we need to do, we add up to 60 people. 660, and then when we know exactly what we should do and how we can do it, we release the project to 600, the symbolic number. And that's just, have you been at in Sweden it's called the koslab, cow release. In the spring, when the weather is good enough, the cows are released out of the barns, and they are so happy they run everywhere over the field. Imagine a field without a fence, and you release cows. Sorry, engineers. I'm an engineer, I think I can say this. You have to explain to an engineer where not to go. So you have to some sort of put a fence around a project. And when we just got a sketch, then the fence is not really defined. Then maybe when we have defined the fence, we realize with the 60 people, we should move it a little bit. So before that is done, don't release a project to 600 engineers because they will go everywhere. And it's just an engineer's nature. Another example of such thing that you have to be more specific to an engineer is that when one of our owners said our product should be of Scandinavian design, if I ask Malek what's Scandinavian design, he will give me an answer. If I ask you, he will give another answer, and probably I get 4 different. Because I think granite, you think maybe wood, other think green. So you have to define. So with those 60 people, we could very quickly and efficiently already design the body panels based on the translation of the sketch and designers that were involved and engineers. We could very quickly design a 3D model of the first version of the body. We had also made a master timing plan, or a project plan, how to do the project and what to do first and in which sequence, which is typically, I mean, we've done cars since 1947. It's typically the same sequence, but sometimes a block of activities is shorter than other times. Then here is the koslab, engineering kickoff. Here is where we thought now we have good grip on what should be done, what do we need to achieve in terms of performance or space. We explained this to the full team, and the full team was at the peak 320 engineers. Not only the ones that we had in my organization, but also a lot of hired contractors, which we typically do. But in late February, early March, some Swedish people came back from ski holiday in Italy. They were ill. It turned out to be COVID broke out in Sweden. So suddenly we had not only the 10 months, which was extremely challenging, but also a high risk that people were not turning up to work. Luckily, very few of our staff became sick, but it restricted how close we could work together. We couldn't invite suppliers to us to come and help us on site. We couldn't travel a lot, at least. So it restricted. Plus, we could obviously forget about getting parts from abroad, especially China, which was already tight from a timing perspective, but it was tough. We had in about the same time, we had built an electrical rig which is basically mechano toy, like a frame that represents a car, but the only thing you see is the cables and every component with a wire or a contact of some sort. So anything electric and just all the electric things. That is put on the car, on the trolley, call it, in approximately the same area where it's supposed to sit in the car. And the purpose of such electrical rig is to start testing the electrical system. Is everything working? And how does the system react when something is pulled off? And also here we did, and I told you 10 months in comparison to maybe, if I compare this project with the 4 years that I just explained, a normal vehicle project, the first 2 years of work in a normal project we have done in 10 months. And normally in a car project, when the car body is of steel, and also aluminum by the way, you have to order tools to get the steel plates pressed. And a normal process of getting the tools done, shipped to your facility where the panels will be stamped, that's a process somewhere about 6 to 12 months. We didn't have 6 months, we didn't have 12 months either. So we said already here to the tooling manufacturer, we chose between a Chinese, who was very cheap, and a German, who was more expensive. We chose the German one because COVID, etc. They had a reputation of always deliver on time and extremely good quality. So we said, oh, more expensive, but we take it. And we said to them already in March, we were not really ready with the full body panels shapes yet, but we said, start milling the tools. And milling the tools means you have a big block of steel or aluminum, and you start milling the shape in negative for body panels. And we said, keep away from the last 3 centimeters of the final shape. Do the rough shape. We will send you an update in April. I think the last update was somewhere in May. Most of the pressed tools were ready somewhere in, I think it was June, July. June must have been. And there's 260-ish steel panels that needed to be put together. And I will continue with the body panels later. But apart from the electrical rig, we also modified a 9.3. I call it the monster. And we also typically do that because the driveline and the chassis needs a little more time than body panels and interior. So we chose to modify 9.3 and give it the front and rear axle of the Emily car prototypes, obviously. And well, you maybe understand why I call it the monster, because it doesn't look very nice, but it looks very impressive, which monsters typically are. But you see the extreme longer wheelbase. This is where normal the wheel arch starts of a 9.3, 2,675 millimeters in a 9.3 and 3,000, so 3 meters for Emily. It's also much wider, Emily, than a 9.3. So we had to modify the car big time, and a lot of electronics and air tank for the air suspension. So Emily has air suspension, it has active dampers, it has 5-link rear axles, really nice chassis, and also 4 in-wheel motors in this car. So with this car or tool, the monster, we can tune and we can start learning about the chassis and tune the powertrain or the motors, which was very helpful. This picture leaked to the media, I caused the leak. I called my brother in the Netherlands and said, I want you to make sure that a picture spreads. So that's why he was here today, Daniel, just smiling for the camera, which was set up. In the meantime, we worked obviously also on the interior, which is the front seats are 9.3 electric seat frames, but we made new foams and new what's it called, upholstery. And here I come back to the body manufacturing. When the body panels were ready in Germany, they were shipped here for putting it all together. And it was in the middle of summer, start of summer holiday for most of the workers. Peter said, he went to the factory and he said, I'm going on a few weeks holiday now and you have to work. Is that okay? He said, yeah, that's fine. We love to work now. Finally, we can do something. And then he said, I have a tough question. The first body that you put together, 260 panels, must be the first car. So they said, we never do that. The first one is always crooked or not really good enough to be a car. And they negotiated a little bit and I said, okay, so Peter, please try best you can do. And if the first one is really too bad, then we should take number 2. But they managed. The first panels that were put together became body number 1 and also VIN number 1. That's number 2. VIN number 1 went to England, was in YouTube. It's here now. But yeah, paint was also done here in-house, obviously inspected fully. So it's a full steel body. The only thing that is carbon fiber is the front fenders. And that's just because we didn't have any time in it. Then, in August, when the first bodies, I think there were 2, then number 1 and number 2, when they were spray painted, next phase was putting it all together. It also is very rare that when we have put it together and tried to start it, that it actually works. There's always some electrical connector that was not really good or software that didn't really work as planned. Or something mechanical, by the way. But this time, already an hour or so after the first trial, it worked and it drove off the assembly line, which is in the manufacturing plant on the other side. It's basically a short copy of the full production line that was, not anymore, but it's fully manually labored and you have to push these forward to the next station. Yes, vehicle verification, testing. We did obviously very little testing. We had the mule or the monster, which could do some testing, but development was always still on the move until the point where we said, now we have to stop because we have to order tools. But we had numerous laps on the test track here behind the building. And well, I think actually this fat brake line still is visible on the track. Suddenly one of the brake calipers on the rear axle broke and blocked it all. And the story behind is that Protein, the manufacturer of those electrical motors, had an integrated brake on the motor, but we were not really happy with it. It wasn't really capable enough for a heavy vehicle like this, 2,175 kilos. So we, together with Protein, we further developed the braking system, and it's a really there is pictures later if you want to see, but it's not a conventional brake system like your Saabs have. It's an integrated little disc, like 4 centimeters wide, around the motor on the inside, and the brake caliper is quite small with brake pads like this big. Electrical cars have possibility to brake with the electric power. So regeneration it's called. And we actually could, if we want, block the rear wheels electrically also. But legal requirements require that you have to have a hydraulic brake also. But in electric cars, brakes are hardly used because the electric brake or regeneration force can be used, and therefore a lot of brake discs rust a lot. And with that comes reduced braking performance initially until the rust is gone, then you can brake through. We recognized that and decided that the Emily car should have not steel brake discs but an aluminum alloy instead, so it won't rust. And the pads are dimensioned for life, despite the fact that there are only this. But shit happened in this project also. That's the summary. Yes, and then in September we were supposed, that was like 10 months into the project, we were supposed to show the product for the executives of NEVS initially. And then the plan was to also invite Evergrande management to Sweden to come and see it. And this is a very short film of the first full speed tests at Volvo's test track outside of Gothenburg. And I have driven so many prototype cars and the test cars, and you always start very carefully. And if things squeak or not really behave, you're squeezing your butt before you can gain confidence, and then you dare to go a little faster. This one, when I drove the Emily car for the first time, I thought after 10 minutes that this is ready. It feels good. So very quickly we dared to increase the speed. The plan was to build 10 vehicles, 10 functional vehicles to fully demonstrate the benefits of those in-wheel motors, not only, let's say, in the driving experience, but also the extra space you can create in the car, etc., etc. And we got a budget from Evergrande that day in November 19, but they were continuously paying the bills of all the parts. And suddenly they stopped paying. So we decided, wise of historical NEVS years, we shouldn't put the suppliers in debt. We should stop ordering parts so that they can get paid while we still have money. So we stopped, and the result is that only 6 of the 10 were really completely built, and we have one half car that is standing around somewhere. And we have a lot of parts left, but there could not be a complete Emily car built out of this. Oh, a picture of the first 3 cars on the test track here. This is number 1. It was initially camouflaged. This is number 2 here in the room. So this is number 3, which is elsewhere now. And well, a very small part of the team that was working. Another short film with studio footage, by the way, not UI or real cameras. Oh. Increase the sound of it.
Considering that it's really only been
8 or 9 months that we've been working on it, to have this level so quickly is quite impressive.
The solidity of car is very good. It really feels like a production car.
You know, it's fantastic what our teams have been able to do in such a short space of time.
I'm really proud today, both of the car but also the team that done it together in Trollhättan.
It's predictable, it's fast, it feels safe, and you feel at home as you've driven this, well, weeks already.
I mean, I'm just blown away by it. This kind of Scandinavian minimalism brought out in its strongest form, really. Well done, guys.
Every time. Yeah, we all of us that had worked on Emily, the 320 engineers, a lot of suppliers also, they fell in love with the product. And even though I had said multiple times to my team that this is not a car that will go into production, this is a project that shows what we can do as a team. Remember that. But you can't help it if it was such a beautiful shape and it's such a nice driving experience. Everyone wanted it to go to production. And we had already in 2022 some hope and thoughts about, okay, if we can sell the project, we can see it go into production. So we went on request of a party in Spain. We went to Barcelona for them to be able to experience and do a proper due diligence, as it's called, research in the technology and blah, blah, blah. So we went to Barcelona, to the Barcelona test track. Nothing driving, Torbjörn was next to a red car, who is our very, very, very best chassis engineer. He's probably one of the best. Extremely tough conditions, 38 degrees outside. And here we could see the effects of the short time, because the battery went hot quite quick into this driving session. And we had Juan Luis Perez, former Formula One driver, doing the evaluation for that company that invited us. He was sort of interested. He said it's a Gran Turismo. It's not a racing car, but he thought it was quite a good package. Yes, in 2023, just remember, already late 2020 when we were ready with the cars. So I skipped a year. When we were ready with the cars, Evergrande had stopped paying, and they couldn't finance NEVS anymore. So we tried to stay alive. NEVS sold the technical development center to the city's real estate company. They sold part of the factory, and they sold the test track to the city of Trollhättan. But by the year shift 2022-2023, Evergrande had, well, they were out of options. They said, we have to close NEVS. So Nina, I go back one more step. The back then CEO, Stefan Tilk, got fired because they thought he didn't succeed to find new owners for NEVS, and no new owners for him. Nina replaced him in February 2023, and a week after her assignment to become the next CEO of NEVS was to basically close down. Everyone out, only keep 20 people to preserve the buildings. So And I was employee number 29, one of the very first that got employed by NEVS. So it was really tough also for me to be fired. Not only that, I had to fire my 320 engineers. Really tough period. But in some way, I have been afterbud, Swedish. I've been numbed, sort of, by all the 11 NEVS years have been ups and downs, and it doesn't really affect me anymore. Not good. Psychologists would love me as an object, but so she had to close down everything, and shortly after that, we said, actually, Peter pushed for it. He said, we have to go public with this project. People that are now fired, engineers, the 320, they need this project to be seen for their own sake, but also for them to give the best conditions to find a new job, because then they could tell, look at this, I've been part of this project. Those components are my components. I can do this. So we decided to make it public in March, and we invited Automotive and Sport, the Swedish version of the magazine, and back then main journalist, Rick Söderlind. He was here 2 days, 2 full days, documented not only the Emily project, but also a little bit Pons and some other projects that we've done. Because in the 11 years, I have been part of 15 NEVS projects, 15. Only one went into production, that's the electric nitro. Everything else was stopped before completion due to not enough money, changed plans, new directives from the board. Frustrating. He dedicated this Ulrik Söderlind 4 issues of Automotive Sport with articles about Emily. And in one of the last, he compared it to the Porsche, was it Taycan? And maybe he was a little bit biased, but he thought the Emily was the better choice. After that, and you guys were there too, a lot of things went viral, and that helped attract some investor candidates to us. This is the Top Gear issue. I think it's now over 2 million shows. So it triggered sort of the interest of people that were looking for a car project that they can continue with. And since NEVS, after this layoff, only was 20 people left, of which 15 were maintenance workers for the factories, infrastructure. No one had the full knowledge of the Emily projects except for the 4 of us. So we helped NEVS a lot with discussions and prepare documentation for investor candidates as of early 2023. Then in November 2023, we had already had some visits from some in the spring and summer. One guy from Lebanon came, EV Electra was his company, and he decided to write a contract. He wanted to buy it. I will tell you a little story. I was with my wife on a Saturday at the shopping mall, the other side of the bridge. Peter had got the news that the contract was signed. I picked up the phone. Peter called me and he mentioned, so I went a little bit away from my wife, and my reaction must have been someone had died, because she asked me, what happened? Someone hurt? No, they wrote the contract with Mr. Jihad Mohammed. He had visited us earlier, and to be honest, very early, the feeling was not correct. And luckily, after some months of struggle with him as a person, personality, maybe more. And also the fact that he didn't comply with the terms of the contract, NEVS decided to abort the contract. And you cannot imagine how many positive reactions NEVS has received after they announced this. You are breaking up with Mr. Yadman. He has not received anything except for the things that already have been shown by ourselves, so pictures, some movies. He has not got any real documentation that could help him make the cars. So all the hard disks are still here. All the cars are still here. But we are still looking for investors, and I also convinced NEVS that maybe we should invest a little time and money to go somewhere where we can meet a lot of rich people. So we went to Mallorca, a very fancy golf club. I shipped 2 cars. That's the same car again, and the silver one, which is actually my favorite car. There's only one silver car. I like to be different. We went, Peter and Peter's wife, my wife, went with us, and also Nina came down. And the purpose was, sorry. The purpose was to see if we can find people that would be willing to invest. We stood there 3 days. There were a lot of people, and actually some contacts we managed to get. Had some discussions with them, but the decision was taken to not invest. But one story I would like to tell, that at some point, let's say 20 people came out of the golf club, golf courses behind it. And they were waiting here and looked around on the cars. I understood from when I talked to some of those people that they were waiting for a shuttle bus, an electric shuttle bus between the golf club and some hotels, and it didn't turn up. So some of them were calling, some of them were tired of waiting, and some of them were talking to us around the car. And one elderly gentleman stepped into that car on the passenger seat, and my colleague Martin sat behind the wheel, and they started discussing, and I was somewhere here in front of talking to someone else who apparently knew this guy. And the guy I talked to, his wife was born in south of Sweden, but they lived in Geneva now, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, him there in the passenger seat, he has lots of money. He has luxury brands, and okay, I don't recognize the most rich people in the world just by their face. So someone in our company will start luxury brands, searching on Google, and Bernard Arnault. He's either he's number 1 in the world, richest, or number 2 or number 3. Depends on the stock market. He was in the car, and later he got my details, because I went to him, of course, kneeled down and heard the discussion, and he was talking about the display, that things should just go smooth, not too fancy, it should work, he said. Later I understood from Martin, who was behind the wheel, Bernard Arnault asked Martin, what will be the price of this car when it's on the market? And Martin's first reaction was, well, how much money do you have? With a smile. Listen, how much money do you have? A question asked to the richest man in the world. So we laughed a lot after that, and I guess that Mr. Arnault also has laughed about it when he returned to his hotel. He was driven, he and his wife and this gentleman that I talked to were driven by Peter to his hotel, because the bus never jumped off. And it was not the regular hotel. There were white gloves people coming out to open the doors. It was nice. A great experience. We had some contacts out of it. I met Victor Müller, also there. He lives on Mallorca. I mean that. His immediate reaction was, I don't believe in electric cars. And then he took the steering wheel, started driving, and he was impressed. But still, he doesn't like electric cars. But he said, I will try to help. Some phone calls after that, but nothing. We're still working on investor candidate search. It's not dead yet, but there's not a lot of speed anymore. To everyone who wants to listen, I say there must be a way. I will not give up, and I still stand here. I will not give up. This can go into production. It's not just a car. It's much more than that. It has a soul. If you ask me, everyone who has experienced it up close or even got the chance to ride in it or drive says this is something really special. You're from the US. I had 2 US guys here. Both of them had worked in the auto industry more than 25 years. One was a little shorter than I am, one was a little bigger than I am. This was summer 2022, and when I talked this story, the shorter one said, "Stop, please stop. I have to give you a hug. This is amazing." And then I invited the other guy to sit in the back seat. And he said, "No, I think it typically doesn't work for me." He wasn't really big, but he was quite tall. And he said, "It typically doesn't work for me." Please try, he said. And he said, when he was in the car, he said, "I still have a little room in front of my knees, and I don't have to sit like this." So they were really amazed and that had their souls in this and made this happen. It's fantastic fun. If you, oh yes, this is also nice. It's on the movie also, but when we started to think about when it should go into production, I don't say if and when, it must have some siblings, of course, some different ones. So this one, the sedan, is here. We have 6.5 functioning cars. All of them perform the same. 5,000 kilometers on that one, 5,000 on the silver one, and 5,000 on number one. No issues. Software mature. So if they are in a bad mood, you have to restart them 3 times. But when they have started in the right way, they work, whatever. A convertible. I have fighted years during NEVS to get an electric convertible on the road. Never succeeded, never got the funding for it. But if I can decide, there will be an Emily version with a soft top. Shooting brake, this is a wrong angle, I think, for the shooting brake, and this is the wrong color for the shooting brake. But on the movie, in the cinema, there's a silver one spinning around. Extremely nice body shape. And the last one, the blue one, is a coupe, which is a little, it's as short as the convertible, but only 2 doors. Combi coupe, we should call it in Saab terms. So we have thought of a model program. We have done, with the help of a consultancy firm, a market analysis, basically asking them, here's the car, is there a market? And they said, yes, there is. And they calculated how many we could sell. They recommended the pricing, 125,000 euros. We should sell in most of the Western European markets. And the volume would be 6,000 to 10,000 per year. So it's quite an exclusive car, which is good for profit or profitability. It's also due to the fact that if we have to lower the price, we have to either increase the volume. And then if we could do that, I don't think we can, but if we could do that, you also have to compete with a lot of more competitors. But at 125,000 euro, we would be on par with a cheap Porsche Taycan, a medium equipped Tesla Model S, Audi e-tron, and so on. Good. Some minutes left. There's no There's no presentation anymore after this, so we have time enough for questions.
Initially, you showed an electric rig somehow. Where does all the electronics come from?
The electronic system is a combination of existing systems from Saab models, 93, newly developed but highly immature software, and some, let's say, hobby product, Raspberry Pis. There's Raspberry Pis in the car. Yeah, the mirrors, for example, Raspberry Pi displays. But it's a mix of highly immature and a few mature things.
So nothing from any other vehicle somewhere around the world.
Steering rack. And if you can call it, it's an electric assisted steering. Steering rack is taken from that. Window regulators and the switches are 93. Door hinges are from 93. But a lot of it is new, so that's also why each car has cost 35 million Swedish kronor. So when we have visitors which are allowed to drive themselves, like journalists or so, and they become a little heavy-footed, I usually say it costs 35 million Swedish kronor. And they are not. It's also a thing. You see there's a registration plate on it. We have 3 cars with registration plates. And that's, NEVS is considered still in the Swedish authorities as a car manufacturer, and has a exemption at the Swedish Transport Authorization authorities to judge themselves if a vehicle is safe enough to operate on public roads. So that's it's a very sensitive and trust thing from the authorities, of course. So 3 of them are registered. We can drive around with them on, which we have done and will do on public streets.
No
But there are
homologation.
no insurance.
No homologation on.
No. But the design and the timeline shows at least 10 months. At some point, if you remember, I said here we had to stop changing things because we had to order the tooling or the components. But the engineers have worked more than that. So we have done, switch to some. This presentation is 75 pages. There's a full 3D model made, but what I wanted to show is this is the motors. Here's the brake disc that I spoke about. Very small, bolted onto the rotor, which is behind the rim. We had, so the engineers have worked more. This is the technical specifications from the 6 cars that we have built, the one that's standing there. But we worked more, and the specification of the cars, if they were going to production, is not exactly the same. The car will, for example, will be a little higher. Now it's less than 1.40 meters. But what I wanted to show is this. We have done crash simulations and improved the construction. So some of the improvements, or most of the improvements, are not in the physical cars. But if we would get the money and the go-ahead to continue the project, we have already a better start than the cars that are standing. But it wasn't planned. But if I can decide, they will be called Sonnet. I own the brand Sonnet. I will be involved in the continuation of this. If I can decide, this will be called Sonnet 4.
Who has made the design?
Irash. I asked him when I had bought the. This was not supposed to be part of the but now it's on.
Now it's
when I have always when we meet Peter Dahl and some other colleagues were eating lunch at the restaurant at the development center. I'm working on a project car at home, TVR Griffith, a British sports car, which has a V8 engine, so I always dreamt of which I should make it electric at some point. First I want to enjoy the V8, but then maybe it can be electric. And I said, well, that car is just a tubular frame chassis with not a carbon fiber, a glass fiber body on it. You could make a different body on the same type of chassis and call it Sonnet. That's how it started. And then I started wondering, who owns the Sonnet brand? And it was NEVS. So I asked Nina and the management team, can I buy it? And they said yes. And then I asked one of our designers, Hirash Razagi, can you, based on the Sonnet 3, can you make a new version of it? This is the result. But that's Moscow. And the convertible.
Question. If you have started out with an SUV that you kind of wished for from the start instead of a sedan,
Yeah,
you think it could have ended up differently?
I think so. Yes, I think so. An SUV would have been a little easier because packaging. We wanted to achieve, we wanted to use the possibility that to show that if there's no electric motor under the hood or no between the rear wheels, we want to utilize that space for the battery. But they also had to send an extremely low vehicle, and in order to keep the vehicle low, you have to put the batteries in the width, But in SUV you can pack it higher because then your foots are anyway higher. Plus your seating position is more like these seats instead of like this. So it would have been easier. In terms of would we be as passionate as we became for this one? Probably. I think probably. You never know, of course, but yeah, it's time. Yeah. But I have the key. Tobbe. We have a test drive to perform. A lot of beginners. Yes. If we would have been as passionate, I don't know. Probably, I think. We actually made. I didn't show you this, but we made an SUV or actually crossover. Sketch also sketch of the convertible shooting brake and the coupe. There is renderings that can spin around, but we made a shorter version of the shooting brake, which was put a little bit higher up, and some claddings like the cross-country Volvos. It's nice, but I think still this is better. Also from a No, I think it's good. Yep.
On the Volvo test track, Mr. Koenigsegg was, of course, invited. Can you tell us anything more about that? And also, what did he feel more about the car? Anything more you can tell?
His first reaction was when he saw it, he said, "This is what the next 9.5 should look like." He said, and then he got the opportunity to both drive and sit in the back seat, as you saw, and he was really impressed. Yeah. He was part of the. He had also involvement with Evergrande because when Evergrande purchased NEVS, they also invested a little bit in Koenigsegg through NEVS. So there was a relationship, and he was generally impressed He saw Saab in it, and he saw the passion, I think, in it, in us all. And he still has a weak heart for this place and us. And we can still call him and ask for help if we want to. But he has made it clear that he cannot invest. He has a lot to do with his own company. His brand is very precious, of course. He has built a fantastic brand. You have to be careful with it. All right. Almost 2 hours left for the sale. Think anything that is left could be a possibility to bargain because they want to have it gone. And for those of you that are going to the test track to the motor festival, this is ongoing. I think just now, the Saab package is running over the test track. Topper will drive three lottery winners over the test track 2:45. So 35 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh man. It was good. How's that?
It was, yeah.
There, now you know at least. It tasted good.
We tried them before, but I mean, still, you want to try them again? Yeah. Oh yeah.
For the last time.
You know how it looks.